Pigeons, they're everywhere. But are there too many? There are reports of damages and possible hygiene issues. May I know your thoughts on pigeons in Singapore? Are there too many of them and such?
There is a lot of pigeon out there. Yeah, I'm okay with them.
I don't really see much pigeon around in Singapore.
For me, I think that it's normal. No one can stop it, and you will never know where will they come and where will they.
Hi, my name is Malcolm. I'm from National Parks Board. I'm a senior researcher with the Wildlife Management branch.
So Malcolm, I got a question for you.
Yep.
Would you consider pigeons wildlife or pest?
I'll consider them actually both. They are both wildlife as well as a pest as well. They're wildlife because if you consider animals that are kept by people, I would consider them as pets. So anything that's freely, roaming and is not kept by someone is a wildlife. I would say for these feral pigeons, they're considered as pests because of the disamenities that they cause. So they have negative impacts to people, and that's why they're considered as pests.
So Malcolm, can you share with us some of the challenges that people face when living alongside nature and birds like pigeons?
Yeah, so if you're talking about pigeons are a nuisance bird species. And so for them, usually they cause some disamenities in residential estates, and the disamenities are mainly soiling. So they could be soiling on people's clothes, soiling on cars. The other things in which other species of birds could possibly cause, like crows, is they could, in the breeding season, they could possibly attack people. So particularly near their nests when they're breeding.
I see.
I just want to highlight one of the studies in which we did. So we did a study on pigeons during the circuit breaker. And our study was done before circuit breaker, during circuit breaker, and also phase 2 HA. And so what we did was we wanted to know with circuit breaker and during circuit breaker, what happens is that people can't go out, so much as social restrictions. So during that period of time, there are less people feeding. And so there's food limitation on these pigeons. And we wanted to know if you manage the food at that period of time, what would happen to the pigeons. So we found out that, number one, the pigeon abundance declined. And number two, the pigeons changed their foraging strategy. So now, instead of foraging on people providing them food, right? It's not human provided food anymore. They had to go around and search for their own food, which is natural sources of food like grass seeds. But the thing is, because grass seeds aren't so abundant, the pigeons had to spend more time searching for the food. And that means that they would have less energy and time for reproducing.
I see.
And that slows down the population growth over time.
Okay.
Right.
Do you guys have any interagency action taking place to help with stopping with pigeons?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because pigeon feeding is one aspect in which we have to tackle. But the other aspect of why pigeons are so abundant in some areas also has to do with high-rise littering. And sometimes you find in certain estates there's high-rise littering of food. So in this regard, we work with other agencies like NEA to try and reduce the incidence of high-rise littering.
How does NParks help with dealing with these issues?
So what we do is we adopt a science-based approach. So we try and understand the ecology a little bit more, and then we come up with management solutions to try and tackle these issues. Yeah.
I see. And how can we, as regular people, help with, do our part?
So for a lot of these nuisance bird species, the problem is mainly people. So it's usually feeding related. So when we're talking about pigeons, the reason why there's so many pigeons in a particular area is because people are feeding them, or there's improper food waste management.
I see. So
Yeah.
when we leave food lying around or throw food to feed them,
That's right.
we end up just causing more of the problem.
Yeah, and so the pigeons are attracted to these food sources, and that's why you see a lot of them around. And in many instances, if the feeding is regular, then the pigeons tend to stay in the environment a bit longer. And that's why you see them on a regular basis.
Why do we have fines for feeding pigeons?
Yeah, so we have fines specifically for feeding pigeons because they cause disamenities, like I mentioned earlier on, like soiling and so on and so forth. So because we don't want so many pigeons in a particular area, and because the problem of them staying around an area is because people are feeding them. So if you're a pigeon, you're inclined to stay there because you know there's a regular source of food coming. So because we don't want to cause further disamenities, we have fines to deter these people from feeding them. Yes, but added to that, that is part of the Wildlife Act, in which prevents or prohibits people from feeding wildlife. It's an act that's all-encompassing also, so it also covers wildlife. And again, the same reason is wildlife can find food on their own, so they don't need people to feed them.
So, like most Singaporeans, I too find pigeons a nuisance. But after talking to Malcolm, I realized that maybe we are the issue. By learning to throw our rubbish responsibly and simply not feeding the pigeons, we might just solve this issue. And to be honest, I want to know what you guys think, right? Leave that in the comments. I'll go and read it. So with that said, this has been CityJo Dharmhik for Singapore One. Goodbye.